Hey everyone, Ian here. Today I've got just a quick story for you that I find highly bizarre, thought-provoking, and strangely entertaining. And it's a story I've only told to a few people and never publicly. What I'm going to describe is absolutely the way it happened. All I can tell you is that I've not embellished this narrative at all, and I don't have to. I know I could get so many more clicks on this channel if I was willing to exaggerate or just lie about my experiences, but that would defeat the entire purpose of what I'm trying to do here. What I've experienced over the years really is weird enough all by itself. So let me be clear about the title and the thumbnail. I would not suggest for a moment that what I experienced is conclusive proof that aliens are living among us, but given all the details of the scenario, I am still to this day not able to simply dismiss it out of hand as total nonsense. It's a memory I find myself pulling out from time to time to kind of dust off and take another look at. I've analyzed this situation. I've done everything I can to shape it into something that makes sense. And from an outside observer's perspective, I am well aware there are all kinds of holes you can poke in this story to make it sound like a completely normal thing to happen that two people just both misconstrued. But all I can say is we were not mistaken about what we observed that day, so you tell me what you make of it. So let's get started. As always, get comfortable, smoke 'em if you got 'em, and get ready for today's episode of Conscious Migration. I'm estimating that this incident took place right around 12 years ago. My friend John and I went on a long hike into the foothills of Boulder, Colorado on a beautiful summer afternoon, and yes, we were both under the influence of psilocybin mushrooms, which were homegrown with love and care and lots of expertise by someone I know personally. So this is important. This was a strain of psilocybin we both already had a lot of expertise with, and furthermore, neither of us were amateurs when it came to altered states of consciousness. Both he and I were somewhere in our mid-30s, and we had hundreds of powerful psychedelic experiences under our belts, most of which were far stronger than the mild to medium dose we had taken the morning in question. Also, it should be mentioned that we're both well trained with years of yoga and meditation, including consciousness raising and focusing techniques. John had even spent years traveling to different ashrams and temples around the globe to study a vast array of meditation techniques. The point I want to drive home here is that neither of us were readily susceptible to the common confusion, the disorientation, or the flights of fancy you find with someone new to these kinds of mind-altering experiences. Not only were we not looking to manufacture some fantastic story to bring home to our friends, like with a sort of, oh man, you won't believe this crazy thing that totally really happened to us. As I mentioned, I don't remember sharing this story with anyone else except maybe my girlfriend at the time. As I recall, she was pretty freaked out by the story, but she was freaked out by most of my stories, really, to think of it. The point is, John and I both had years of training in how to recognize when our imaginations and our internal dialogue were getting the best of us and pulling us away from what was actually being presented in the present moment, even in a psychedelic state. We were slowly making our way up this steady incline on a trail that led up this mountain that was lightly spotted with other hikers, so we were being passed by someone coming down the mountain the opposite direction about once every couple of minutes or so. And the two of us started playing the sort of game where we'd become very quiet and just let all of our attention rest on the next hiker coming down the hill. And we would just see what we could pick up from this person without interacting with them, without speaking with them, just openly observing them quietly. And then after they would pass, we would compare notes. What did we pick up from this person? And That's everything from the broad strokes, like their general demeanor and emotional state, but we could pick up specific details about their personality as well, how they identify themselves, their strengths and weaknesses, their likes and their dislikes. He and I got really good at being able to ride the same frequency in these states, and we were always in total agreement on even the most minute details about the person we had just passed. Those of you who have some experience with meditative and or psychedelic states, this is something that is really pretty easy to do once you learn to quiet your own inner chatter. People are literally bursting with information, even when they don't speak at all, sometimes especially when they don't speak. And I'm not necessarily talking about supernatural abilities here. When you put yourself aside and rest your attention on someone else, you are taking in their body language, their facial expressions, the clothing they chose to wear that day, micro expressions, what their eyes are doing, even their smell. And from the right state of mind, you are able to take in all of that information at once, and if you allow it to, it will all coalesce, and it will build an incredibly detailed and accurate outline of a person, even a total stranger. In fact, reading strangers can be easier than reading people you know, because it's far easier to drop everything you think you know about this person, so you can receive a clear transmission of information. We often like to think of ourselves as being very complicated, complex beings, but from another more quiet perspective, human egos really are all very similar, and pardon me while I dip into the more paranormal qualities of this perception. Yes, you absolutely can take that exact same skill very far. I'm talking to the point where you can peek into that person's history and even their future. But again, that information is all there if you can get yourself out of the way first. Get your own biases and your beliefs and assumptions out of the way. In many ways, what we call being psychic is really the rare and unique ability to get past yourself, to clearly see what's going on beyond your own story. And that's why most people aren't psychic. The price is too high. It requires a dethroning of the ego. It might sound simple, but those of you who have spent time meditating and spending time with these issues know how difficult that can really be. And yet, we absolutely all have potential of tapping that exact same space. So, John and I played this little game for a little over an hour, I'd say, just tuning into person after person, gazing into their bodies, into their souls, you might say, and then seeing if we agreed. We saw everything that day, from joy to heartache. In some cases we could see emotions they were holding that they themselves weren't even aware of. We found a couple fairly serious illnesses as well lurking in a couple of people. A few of them seemed very light and airy, like they barely held a care in the world, and those people always just kind of glow. Sometimes they seem to almost float above the ground. After an hour or so, here comes this man way up ahead of us, or I should say he appeared to be a man. Everything about him was man-shaped, you might say, but what was coming toward us was unlike anyone or anything we had encountered yet, and immediately something isn't right about this guy. Long before he's anywhere near us, and I can feel it from John too. He's not getting a lock on this guy either. There was something about his gait I noticed at first. You can pick up so much from just watching someone move and walk, but the only way I can describe this individual is to say that it was technically walking like a human, but only in the strictest sense. It was like watching something that had studied how humans walk and had got very good at replicating the movements, but there was no personality behind the body language. So he's getting closer, and I'm really trying to pick up anything from this character at all, and all I was getting back was a frequency of sorts, and all I can say is this frequency was not human. Nothing about this individual was human at all. Not dangerous, not creepy necessarily, although it was a little unsettling because nothing added up here. He looked like a perfectly ordinary man for the most part on the outside, but it was like I was looking at a super thin veil that mimicked a human, and poorly at that. I was left with the feeling that I was looking at a cheap human costume that was good enough to fool 99% of the population who just weren't paying attention, but we were. This thing just happened to cross two people who were paying the deepest attention. I don't think I myself would have given this guy a second thought had I not been in this highly attuned, focused state of consciousness. And I'd say he looked like he was around 50 years old or so. He was wearing a brown hat, but he appeared to be fairly bald beneath it, and no facial hair. He had a perfectly blank expression on his face. And when I say blank, I don't mean like the sort of glazed over look when you're distracted or you're lost in thought or even in awe of something. I'm saying this face was blank, like it was a mask. His clothing was the most ordinary clothing that in no way stood out in any way whatsoever, almost like it was designed not to stand out. He was wearing dark brown pants, a dark colored buttoned up shirt, and a jacket. Again, it was like something that wanted to just blend in with every other human, it's like he picked up a random body and put, perfectly normal clothes on and decided to walk around on Earth for a bit. He didn't make eye contact with us when he passed. His eyes were facing forward, but I really didn't get the feeling that anything, at least human, was looking through those eyes. So he passed us, and both John and I were just shaking our heads, and John already he can barely contain himself because we always had to wait a few moments before we could compare notes so the hikers could get far enough away so we could talk about them. And soon after this individual passed, we both just stopped in our tracks, and we both turned around and watched him hike down the trail away from us. And John finally breaks the spell and he says, "What in the hell was that?" And I was speechless. I didn't know what to say except to just basically repeat what he had just said. What was that? Not who was that? Not, hey, what was up with that guy? He seemed odd. No, this was what just passed us. And I finally said it aloud, what I knew we were both thinking, and I said, that was not human. It was the only way to describe my final conclusion. I had no idea what this individual was. I only knew in my heart of hearts it wasn't human. And John didn't hesitate. He even laughed at the possibility that what just walked past us was in the human species at all. And he finally said, "Absolutely not." And we both laughed for quite a while at how odd it all was, and we shook our heads and we kept hiking. We had no inclination to chase after this individual whatsoever. Not necessarily out of fear, just, I guess the best way I can say it is that there was a strong hesitation about running down and trying to interact with this whatever it was. At the time, I may have not really wanted to know what else I'd find if I tried to talk to this individual. So here's the thing. I regularly enter altered states of consciousness and I hike. This is part of my routine. I live on the Front Range of Colorado, I enter meditative states, and I walk around. So I can't begin to guess how many thousands of people I've been in front of who I've passed over the years that I've observed from that state of awareness. Never have I come across anything like that again, where I was looking at something that appeared human. I've observed people who have very little personality, people who are zoned out, even nearly catatonic or totally shut off from the world. And in some cases, it's from extreme trauma in their past or from something they're right in the middle of. And this is Boulder, Boulder, Colorado. So I've come across people who are just very unusual or living on the fringes of society, or sometimes they're clearly high on some kind of very powerful drug, whatever, you name it. But no matter the details on the surface, there's still a core energy signature further down near the heart of all of us that is human. beneath which is pure consciousness, which we all share. You could say that waves come in lots of shapes and sizes, but it's all water, except for that entity. And I don't know what that means. I know that there was a consciousness there at the core, the same that every living thing is a part of. This wasn't something inorganic somehow, is what I'm saying. This was something that was definitely alive. And I know you want probably a nice, tidy conclusion to this story, and I wish I had one beyond what I've already told you. I really have no more information than that. I can't tell you what that was all about. I've certainly read a lot of experts over the years who swear that life forms from other planets or dimensions or what have you are living among us, and they look just like every other human. And even after all I've experienced, I can't help but think that still sounds ridiculous to me. I mean, it's a neat idea, but I just don't know what to think of it. I'll say this. If that is true and aliens are living among us who appear human, I would say that whatever passed us on the trail that afternoon absolutely has my vote as being one of them. So if any of you has a similar story, please reach out to me in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you've got to say. So, okay, that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like unusual talks like this. It truly costs you nothing, and it does help my channel grow. So until next time, peace and love to you all.